All right. So strategy is not one. It is something that can make a company successful or make a company a failure, right? Strategy is so important that consultants are paid billions of dollars every year to help companies to develop their strategies. Okay, so as a first thing we talk about strategy is talking about a couple of examples of companies that created successful and unsuccessful strategies. So the first company that I always love to use is Disney. Disney is one of the oldest and biggest companies in the entertainment industry today. In 1984, Disney was mostly focused on their theme parks, and back then they had two theme parks. They had the one in Florida, Disney World, and the one in California, Disneyland, right? And this was their main business. This business resulted in 77% of the profits of Disney back then. The film industry, which is now a big thing in Disney, films contribute hugely to Disney today, but back then they only represented 1% of the profits. They only used very simple movies like all these cartoon and very kid-friendly movies back then. And then consumer products were responsible for 22% of the profits. Now, this profit for a company of Disney size was not acceptable. And therefore, they hired one of the legends in strategy and in leadership, Michael Eisner. They hired him in 1984. What this guy did is he increased the admission prices of the theme parks. He moved more into the movie industry, movie studios. They purchased many Pixar, they purchased Marvel, and now we have all these nice movies that they are creating now. And they diversified into new areas, TV, hotels, retail stores, and so on and so forth. So the revenue increased from $2 billion in 1984 to $28 billion in 1994. That's 10 times the income in 10 years. This is huge, right? And how did this happen? This happened by Michael Eisner's modifying or changing the strategy of Walt Disney. Before Michael Eisner, Walt Disney had a very simple mission and very simple strategy. The mission of Disney before Michael Eisner was very simple. Our job, our main purpose of life is to entertain people by using theme parks. Okay, this was their main mission. After Eisner came in, he modified this theory completely. He converted the mission of Disney from simply using theme parks into focusing on premium entertainment. Okay, what happened is Eisner looked at the strengths of Disney. He saw that Disney has expertise in entertainment. They have very sorry about that. They have great characters that kids and adults like. They have great theme parks. They have funding, and therefore he said, why don't people love our entertainment? They love our theme parks. So why don't I promote these capabilities that we have and get people to pay more money to get our entertainment? And he was 100% successful. Disney now is one of the biggest companies in entertainment. They have these few movie studios. They have lots of theme parks. They have 2 in the US, 1 in Europe, and 1 in China, and they are opening others in other parts of the world. They have now Disney Plus for video streaming. They are everywhere, anywhere that can where entertainment has a value, you will find Disney has part in this area, right? And they have really grown, and all of this because of this shift in strategy. They modified the strategy, and this led to a change in the income. An example of a failure strategy that I love to use as well is Sears. Sears, I don't know if you guys know Sears or not. Sears, since the 1950s, was one of the biggest retailers in the US market. They competed with Walmart, Target, and all of these big names. When e-commerce started in the early 2000s, Sears' strategy was rather not realistic. They said that we are a brick and mortar stores, and people love us because we are brick and mortar. They can come and they enjoy our friendly atmosphere and they buy from us. So we are not going to invest in online marketing or in online businesses or in online retail. We will stick with our brick and mortar. And what happened because of this inability to read the environment, to read the technology of the future, what happened is new generations of shoppers came along, you guys and me and everyone else who prefer to use online shopping to going to the store and picking up the clothes ourselves or picking up whatever ourselves. So these shoppers started to abandon Sears and go to other retailers who allow us to do online shopping. To correct this, Sears decided to go into the online market. However, when they did this, it was too late, and they did it so clumsily. They did it too fast. They did not plan it well, and therefore their e-commerce website was one of the worst online retailers' website I have ever used in my life. And the result, Sears was open in the US and in Canada. Sears Canada has closed a few years ago, and Sears US is closing down. Okay, so a strategy can lead to complete success or complete failure. This is why it's very important. And nowadays, technology plays central part in strategy, as we will see as we go on. Okay. So how do we create a strategy for the company? Okay. We always start with a mission and vision. Okay. Mission and vision are two separate things. We'll talk about that later on. So we need to set a mission of the company and vision of this company. And based on our mission and vision, we start to establish some long-term objectives, some goals we want to reach in 5 years, in 10 years, whatever. Then comes the most important part of the strategic management process, which is the analysis. Yes, I agree with you, Michael. Yes, everyone loved Sears. I love Sears myself, and I was very sorry when they closed down. I was in Canada then, not in the US, and I was very sorry they closed down there.
Oh, yeah. And I didn't even think about it till now, till you mentioned it. But if they'd done it right, because you know I'm non-traditional student. I'm 48. I grew up. My grandparents loved Sears. We were taught to shop at Sears. If they'd done it right, they would have competed with Amazon probably, because we would have used it. You know, because that was what we knew. Anyways, but yeah.
Yes, 100% okay. So that happened because of a very unrealistic reading of the environment, and this is why a small someone who is at the top level who makes one wrong decision and he ruins the lives of everyone else. Okay, so this is typical in business, and we have seen this in strategy can lead to success. I have seen this in many companies who succeeded because of good strategy or failed.
Well, and you know, not take up too much time, but they had everything else down. Like you mentioned, their customer service. I mean, I remember my grandparents having warranties on appliances they got from Sears, and it would get fixed, no problem at all. If they had figured this out, that like you, I mean, it's a very good example. I've never even thought about it. Thank you for pointing that out.
Well, thank you. So yes,
I disagree with Michael, and I'm not even that old.
So yes, so Sears was very well known with their friendly and customer friendly, and this is what diluted them. This is what prevented them from being from seeing the future. They said our main competitive advantage is our friendly work with our customers. So if we go online, we won't be able to provide this kind of friendly service to the customers. But this blindsided them. They weren't able to see that there are new generations who want to get things done. They are not interested in these friendly interactions so much. They just want to go online, buy the things, get their things delivered to their doorstep, and that's it. So they failed to identify this problem. Anyway, where Sears failed and where most strategists fail is in this area, the analysis, understanding what's going on in the environment outside and internally in the company. If they fail to do that, then there is no strategy. The strategy, anything they do in the strategy will fail as well. You have to understand your environment, that what's going on around you, new technologies that are appearing, changes in your population, in the population of your customers, and so on and so forth. You have to understand this before you can do anything. If you don't understand these factors, and we'll talk about that today and on Friday, then it's guaranteed that you are going to lose, right? Based on this analysis, we make a strategic choice. It's very hard to explain a strategic choice. I can only explain it by the case study. So I will show you how analysis leads to a choice once we get into the Netflix case study on Friday. After we make our choice, then we start implementing the strategy and hopefully getting into gaining competitive advantage and making money more than our competition. Now, a couple of things that we need to talk about here, okay, is the definition of mission and vision and the difference between them. A mission is what a company does, why we created the company in the first place. So Sears, for example, a mission for Sears would be something of selling diverse merchandise or diverse products to customers in a friendly environment. For example, something for Tesla, for example, would be manufacturing and selling electric cars with high technology. Okay, Apple creating appealing, interesting, exciting products and marketing them to our customers. So the mission is what the company does. A vision is where the company wants to be in 5 years. So for Tesla, for example, a vision would be to be the most selling car producer in the world in 5 years. For Apple, it would be to get into new industries like electric cars, for example, in 5 years. For Sears, I don't know, they closed down, so I don't know what their vision might be. So let's not talk about Sears and so on. So a vision is where the company wants to be in 5 years. Based on this vision, where the company wants to be, they create some objectives. They create some long-term goals to be executed or to be reached within these 5 years. So again, for example, if you are talking about Tesla, vision of being the most car-selling manufacturer in the world in 5 years, then some of the objectives they can create is extending the battery life and lowering its cost, building more factories, researching more technology for autonomous cars, some objectives that will lead them to be the most selling car producer in 5 years. Okay, so they create objectives based on their vision. After they create their objectives, they start analyzing the environment to decide how they are going to achieve these objectives. So for example, one of the objectives is to build new factories so that they can increase their production. They can analyze the environment in China, in India, in the US, in Europe, and then decide where they want to build these factories. We will, based on our analysis, we are going to build our factories in China. We are going to build our factories in the Middle East, and so on. Okay, and then this is their strategic choice, and then they start implementing, building the factories and implementing their strategy. Right. So this is the strategic management process that most businesses follow. The most important step, as I mentioned here, the most important step in this process is the analysis. This part, this is very important. This is what differentiates a good strategy from a bad strategy. And I have been watching your capstone projects for a while, right, guys? So I like to go and see what you guys are doing. You in your work in capstone project, I see that you do wonderful work in the external analysis. So you study the industry, you study the population, you study everything. But many of you don't look at the insides of the company. They don't look at the weaknesses and strengths of the company and how to promote these strengths and get rid of these weaknesses to improve your market share or improve your profit. Okay, so analysis has 2 parts here. Okay, external analysis and internal analysis. Again, we will be talking a lot about those when we move to the case study in Netflix. But to summarize, external analysis is analyzing the environment on the outside of the organization. So demographics, for example, is your population aging or is it more of young age? Males or females, married or single? All of these play an important role in the willingness of your customers to buy from you, right? Recently, I was involved with some research with Amazon, right? And I got to see the internals of Amazon. I got to see how they use demographics to sell their products. So the marketing of Amazon products, a big percentage of marketing of Amazon on Amazon and advertising on Amazon depend on the demographics. So they look at, do single people prefer this kind of products or do married people? So if they find that they find out you are married by going through their information, and Amazon is good at going at your information, then you will see many ads that focus on these products that are appealing to married people. If you are single, you will find ads that focus on single people, and so on and so forth. They have huge teams dedicated just to understand the demographics around them and the impact of demographics on purchasing behavior. New technologies. This is where it's interesting for us as information systems and as people who are going to work in a world of technology in the future. New emerging technologies in the market has a huge impact on company strategy. Okay, we'll see that on Netflix. In Netflix case, technology changed how Netflix did things altogether. So we'll see the impact of technology, and I will point out some very interesting things to you guys when we talk about when we see this in action, right? Internal analysis, right? So this is for the external part. For the internal part, we need to understand our strengths and weaknesses. Do we have the people inside the company who can carry out our strategy or not? Do we need to hire new expertise, or do we have enough expertise in-house? Do we have the technology in-house that allows us to be successful and be able to implement the strategy, or do we want to look in the market and get new technology? Okay, so this is something that we need to consider and we need to address before starting to implement our strategy. If let's say Tesla, one of the Tesla's objectives is to improve the mile per charge of their batteries and increase their lifetime. Okay, but they don't have the technology. They are using lithium ion technology, and this technology is limited in terms of range and in terms of lifetime. Then they have to look for another technology. If their goal is to improve the lifetime of their batteries, they have to look for another technology that allows us to do so, like solid state batteries, for example. And this is something Tesla is actually doing. So this is something they are actually doing right now as we speak. Okay, so this is the central part of the analysis. After we are done, then after we pick our strategic direction, then we need to implement the strategy, right? Strategy implementation is very sophisticated, and it requires clear hierarchies in the business. Who is reporting to who, and who is responsible for what in the business. It also requires feedback. So you don't just implement the strategy and don't see what's going on around you. You need to implement the strategy, and you need to look and see if the strategy is working or not. If it is not working, then you need to replan everything again. Okay. We have a very common saying in business: strategy is only as good as its implementation. Okay. So if you do a great plan and you have these great objectives, but you cannot implement them, you don't have the resources, or you don't have the funding to implement your strategy, then you are going to fail, even though you have a great plan. Okay. Okay. All right. So the goal of the strategic process is to gain competitive advantage. So our goal, our purpose of having a good strategy is to have advantage over other types of other competitors in the market, right? Let me talk about, before I talk about this, let me talk about internal and external analysis first, and then I will talk about this. Okay. Because as I mentioned, analysis is very important. So there are many models out there that we can use to analyze the internal and external environment. I will focus on two of them that are very famous and very well known. The first one is called the model of environmental threats. Another name for this is Porter's 5 forces. So any one of these will work, Porter's 5 forces or a model of environmental threats. Okay. This model focuses on analyzing the industry. So let's say that you guys, 5 or 6 of you, decided that after graduation, you are going to start your own business in some industry, in analytics industry, in blockchain technology, in retail, whatever. And you want to decide whether this is a good industry to be in or not. We use this model to analyze our industry. So this model is based on or an assumption that there are 5 forces or 5 threats that can have an impact on any industry. Okay. These threats include new competition. So is it easy for new companies to come and compete with you in the industry or not, right? To analyze this, to answer this question, whether it's easy for others to get into this industry, we have to look at things like barriers to entry. So what prevents new competitors from coming into your industry? Do you have patents? Are patents important in your industry? Does it require lots of expertise? Does it require lots of funding? Does it require high manufacturing capabilities? Okay. The more hard it is for new competition to get into your industry market, the more profitable is your industry. Okay. A couple of examples, for example, the restaurant industry. Restaurant industry, it's very easy to get into, to build a new restaurant. All you have to do is to get someone who can cook, have a place, and you are done. You can start having your restaurant. It doesn't require lots of investment, and it doesn't require lots of expertise or technology, right? So it's easy to get into the restaurant industry, and therefore you will find that restaurant industry is one of the lowest margin industries that we know. On the other hand, if you work in technology and especially manufacturing chips, electronic chips for processors, for memory chips, and so on, this industry is very hard to get into because it requires huge investments, right? In order, the machines that are used to build these circuits are $100 million each or more. The second thing is you need expertise, you need technical expertise in order to be able to manufacture these chips. And this industry is full of patents. You need to have some patents in order to be able to manufacture these chips. So it's harder for new competition to get into the chip industry. Okay. The second threat is existing competition. Okay. When you get into an industry, there are competitors in this industry. If the industry is characterized by fierce competition, by lots of big competitors who are established in the market, then it will be hard for you to make a lot of money because you have to compete with many competitors in the market, right? So you either need to find another industry, or you need to come up with a new idea that will get you into this industry. Again, an example is the car industry, right? In the car industry, there are very well established competitors in the market: Ford, GM, Honda, Toyota, Mercedes, and so on. These companies are very powerful and have been there forever. So there is lots of competition in this market. So in order to get into the car manufacturing business, you need to have something new. This is what Tesla did. Tesla came up with new things in the car industry, electric cars and technology in cars. And this is what allowed them to be successful despite the big competition in the car industry. Another example, another threat is substitute products, right? If there is a substitute to your product that customers can go to, if you increase your price, then you are in trouble. You have to limit any increase in your price. For example, if you are working in a company that builds PCs, computers, then a substitute for the computers are the tablets, iPads and other tablets, and smartphones with big screens now, right? So you have to consider the prices of your PCs. If you set your prices too high, then your customers will leave you and go use something that is cheaper and does the same kind of tasks, right? So you have to be careful if there question. Okay, so you have to be careful when you are working in the industry. You have to be careful with the substitutes. Now, two of my favorite threats, not my favorite, I don't like threats, okay. Two of the threats that are very common in today's business environment are supplier leverage and customer leverage. Supplier leverage is when we have few suppliers and many customers, right? In this case, the supplier can set their prices as much as they want. They can tell you, for example, if you are working in, if we are talking about the processors, computer processor industry, we have two main players, Intel and AMD. So they can set the prices as high as they want, right? If Intel says, I'm going to sell the i7 at $3,000, then you as a computer manufacturer have no option but to pay the $3,000 if you are interested in working with Intel. Okay, you have no other option. So suppliers can have strong leverage when there are few suppliers and many customers. Okay. One of the recent, I want to show you the importance of this. I want you to keep this in mind, guys. One of the recent things where we have seen the threat of supplier leverage is a couple of years ago, the US government imposed ban on Huawei in China on technologies that Huawei used in telecommunication and in manufacturing smartphones and even in Android. So Google, because Google is an American company, they would not supply updates to Huawei smartphone users. Huawei tried to show some braveness and said we will manufacture our own chips and we can do it, but they failed, right? Because we as users, why should I get a Huawei that is threatened of not working with Android and not working in the US? Why should I do that? So Huawei Huawei back then was one of the top selling smartphone manufacturers in the world, and the sales dropped significantly. They lost their market share completely because of the suppliers' power over them. Another more recent example is in the US into 2021, many car factories closed down because there was shortage of supply of chips, electronic chips that they used in cars. So they weren't able to operate, right? So if one factory, if one manufacturer has control of these chips, then think about the power this manufacturer has over car manufacturers. The final threat is buyer's influence. This is on the other end of the spectrum, right? So this happens when we have many suppliers and few numbers of buyers. The most common example here is Walmart. Walmart, because Walmart is the biggest retailer in the US and maybe in the world, as well as Amazon. So what they do is they can force the suppliers to lower their prices. They can go to the supplier and tell the supplier, if you want us to get your products and sell your products, you have to give us a big, steep discount. Otherwise, go find someone else to sell your products. And the poor supplier has to comply. Otherwise, there are many other suppliers, right? So Walmart can get their products from someone else. Not just that, Walmart forces the suppliers to use the same information systems Walmart is using, so that there can be some integration between the systems. Okay, so you can see how powerful a buyer can be. Walmart and Amazon influence caused Toys R Us to close down in the US, right? Because Toys R Us purchased their toys from suppliers at certain price, Walmart and Amazon went to the same suppliers and told them, we want to buy to sell your toys, but you have to give us a very big discount because we sell more than Toys R Us. So again, they complied, and therefore Walmart and Amazon started selling the same toys as Toys R Us with much lower price, and Toys R Us had to close down. Okay, so the rule of thumb here is the higher the threats, the lower the income or the lower the profit you can get from this industry. Okay, so this is an analysis of the whole industry. Okay, any questions or comments here, guys? Okay. So I will finish this by talking about another very well-known method of analysis, which is SWOT analysis. Okay, SWOT analysis is one of the most common, most heavily used analysis frameworks in the world right now. So I'll show you an example of how the SWOT works, and again we will implement it on Friday when we talk about the Netflix case. Okay, so I'm going to share a whiteboard and I will show you what is. I'm sure you know the SWOT analysis, but this is just a review. So when we talk about technology and why a company selects a specific technology next week, you will understand the terminology that I will be using. Okay. So SWOT stands for SWOT. Okay. SWOT, S is for strengths. Okay, so S is for strengths. That means the strengths of the company. W is for weaknesses. O is for opportunities. And T is for threats. Okay. Now, the top half of this table represents the internal environment of the company. So the strengths and weaknesses are things inside the company, things that are influenced by the company itself, by the business itself, not related to the external environment. Some of the common strengths that we talk about include things like funding. Is there enough money in the company to get into new projects or get into new initiatives? Things like technology owned by the company. So what technology is owned by the company? Things like expertise or experience, HR. Something like reputation. Okay, right? So all of these are features of the company itself. It has nothing to do with the environment. They have money. It's the company that has the money. Technology that they own, experience of their own people, and the reputation among the customers, right? The weaknesses are the opposite of these things. So lack of funding is a weakness. Lack of new technology is a weakness. No experience is a weakness. No reputation or no customer base is a weakness, right? So the opposites of these trends can be weaknesses. These are examples, right? So this varies from one company to the other. And again, we will have a look at this when we start talking about Netflix, right? On the other hand, the lower part of this table focuses on the external environment, what's going on outside the company, and that can impact the profit of this company or the market of the company. So in opportunities, we talk about things like demographics. Okay, are the demographics changing or not, right? We talk about things like taxation. So what is the taxation system? Are there benefits for the company of specific industries? Is this country taxes corporations highly or not, and stuff like that? We talk about technology, but okay. Now I want you to see that there is technology in the strengths and opportunities. Technology, they are different. Technology in the strengths is the technology owned by the company. Technology in opportunities is technology that is outside there that the company can take advantage of. Okay. What else? Interests. So interests of the people. Okay. Okay. And competition. Low competition, if there is low competition in one market. And again, the opposite in threats. Okay. Okay. So the key here, guys, is to be able to do a good job in this step. If you can do a good job in analyzing your internal and external environment, this is going to help you to have a good strategy and implement this strategy successfully. Okay, let me show you. Let's do an example of a company of some sort. Does anyone have a company in mind that we need to do a SWOT analysis for, or should I pick one? Any preferences? Yes, Leslie.
I would say the NFL.
NFL?
Yeah, the National Football League, just because it's almost the Super Bowl. So
Yes. Okay, so I can do that, but if I do that, you guys are going to talk about strengths because I am Canadian, so I'm not a football fan. So it's going to be hard for me to identify strengths and weaknesses of the NFL. Okay, so let me. If you want to do it, then you have to pick the strengths and weaknesses. But if you don't, then let's pick a business. Let's pick a company, a technology, any company in the world, right? So that is well known, because NFL, I'm not very familiar with it. Coca-Cola. Okay, let's do Coca-Cola. Right? So let's say, okay, so let's say Coca-Cola wants to create a new strategy that before we work on SWOT, we need to set the vision of Coca-Cola. What does Coca-Cola want to be, right? So let's say Coca-Cola has a new vision. That this vision is to be a leader in healthy things. Which I don't think they will do, but not a leader. The leader in health drinks in 5 years. Okay. So this is their main vision. This is where they want to be in 5 years. And they want to look at the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats in the healthy drinks market right now. So strengths of Coca-Cola can be things like funding. Coca-Cola is a very rich company, of course, right? Right. And then things like expertise as well. They have expertise in manufacturing drinks, or experience in manufacturing drinks, and they have the reputation. Anything else you can think of in the strengths of Coca-Cola? Coca-Cola. Can you think of any other? Economics of scale. Yes, that's a nice one. Thank you. That's a very nice one. Yep, that's yeah. So sponsorship with celebrities can be included in the reputation. So when this celebrity coordination can lead to good reputation, and loyalty is also part of reputation. So when I say reputation, I mean loyal customer base, I mean good appearance, good image, and so on. Okay, so economies of scale. Okay. Right. Now, for the weaknesses of Coca-Cola, brand recognition, all of this is, so I'll make sure this is here. So loyal customers, brand recognition, so on. Okay, so this all falls under reputation. Okay, if we talk about weaknesses of Coca-Cola, you will find that they have few weaknesses. The weaknesses, for example, they have experience in soda drinks, but they don't have experience in healthy drinks, right? So no experience in health drinks, for example, right?
I have a question, Professor.
Go ahead.
Could the reputation also be a weakness because of where they're going?
Yes. So yes, that's a great question. So reputation can be a weakness because Coca-Cola has a reputation that it is producing unhealthy drinks like Coca-Cola and all of these unhealthy, full of sugar drinks. Then of course it can impact its other products. And in this case, I'm sure it's a kind of weakness because if you look at the health drinks that are manufactured by Coca-Cola right now, none of them is called Coca-Cola. They are all called other things, but owned by Coca-Cola, right? So reputation can be a weakness if the new market they are going into goes against their reputation, right? So yes, I agree with you. It can be a weakness as well. We'll look at that once we are done with the analysis. We'll talk about if reputation is a weakness or strength. Jacob mentioned acquisitions. So acquisitions, Jacob, is not weakness or strength. Acquisition is a way to overcome weaknesses. So Coca-Cola does not have experience in health drinks, and therefore they are going to acquire companies that have experience in health drinks, right? So acquisition is not analyzing the environment, it is response to the weaknesses of the company. Okay. Right. Let's put a reputation, let's put it here. Right. So let's put that as well. Let's put limited. Right. So I'm not sure of Coca-Cola capabilities, but we already put economies of scale in strength. So I cannot put economies of scales, which means they can produce large scale. I cannot put it in strength and again put it in weaknesses. So this is an example. We are not familiar with this company, so let's assume that economies of scale is a strength, not a weakness. Opportunities are something that are out there in the market that Coca-Cola can take advantage of. Things like health awareness, like people are now more aware of their health, young population, right? What else can be there? Let's look at. Right. So these are some of the opportunities. So the goal here is not to be exclusive, not to be inclusive of everything, because I'm not familiar with Coca-Cola, right? You have to be familiar with the company to analyze the market. But what I'm trying to show you is in the top half of this table, we are focusing on internal things. These are all internal parts, things in Coca-Cola. These are external things, right? So threats can include competition, right? They have lots of competition in this interesting market, right? yeah, that may be it. Okay. So what happens is after we develop this SWOT analysis is Coca-Cola will say the following. It will say, okay, we have lots of funding. I have lots of funding. I have lots of money that I can use. I have a reputation as a company that can create that can produce drinks, but I don't have experience in health drinks. So I'm going to use my funding, which is part of my strengths, and I'm going to buy or acquire other companies that focus on health drinks. This way, I will overcome my weakness. I have a weakness, I will overcome my weakness. Okay. By creating health drinks, I'm going to take advantage of this health awareness and young population. Acquiring new companies will help me also get rid of the competition, because if I acquire my competitors, then I am decreasing or limiting the competition in the market. This is just an example, an overview of how to develop the SWOT and use the SWOT. Right? So the final thing that I will talk about, and then I will end it, is why do we analyze the environment and why do we have strategy? We have a strategy so that at the end we can gain a competitive advantage over our competitors. Right? Right? So competitive advantage means being able to create more profit or more economic value than the competition in the market. Basically, there are two types of competitive advantage that a company can have. The first one is cost leadership. This happens when you improve the efficiency of your production and you can lower the cost more than anyone else in the industry. The most common examples in retail is Walmart, in car manufacturing, Toyota, in phones, all the Chinese brands that sell phones, they can sell phones really cheap, right? So people buy these products because they are of appropriate quality and they have lower prices than everyone else competing with them. The other type of strategy is product differentiation, differentiating your product from everyone else by adding more features, by adding better quality than everyone else, by adding new technology than everyone else. The most common example in smartphones is Apple. Apple differentiated its products by assigning or by associating Apple products with high places in with rich people, right? With people who have money and who can buy an Apple phone, and also with high level of customer service and high level of quality, right? So they have differentiated their products by saying that we are offering new technologies, we are offering excellent customer service and prestige, right? In the car industry, we have Tesla offering new technology and electric cars. They differentiated their cars from everyone else in the market, and everyone now is trying to follow pursuit, and they are trying to build competing electric cars. But still, Tesla is the business leader in this area, right? Interestingly, you can combine both of them together. So you can differentiate your product and at the same time have a nice cost. Again, Toyota is an example. Toyota has good quality, and people like Toyota's cars because of the quality and low maintenance fees of the car. And at the same time, its cost is reasonable compared to other car manufacturers. Okay. So I'm going to stop here. This was an overview of strategy. And the goal, again, of this is to get you guys ready when we talk about technology and how technology fits into the company strategy. All right. Good morning, everyone. And it's wonderful to see you in Business 460. Welcome, everyone. And let's start, hopefully,